Welcome. My name is Steve Strauss. I'm a consultant with Developmental Associates. We've run the search process for the police chief's position. We're really delighted to see such a wonderful turnout of citizens who want to hear more from each of these police chief candidates. It's quite a turnout, and we're very impressed and delighted that you all are here. And we look forward to your participation. I want to give you a little bit of background on how the candidates have reached a point where they are right now. They've gone through a very thorough process. We did a recruitment process nationally. We recruited over 60 candidates for the position, which is a high number these days for a large city police chief. We then did a secondary screen in which the candidates went through a telephone interview with a retired police chief, Willie Williams, who used to be the chief at North Carolina Central and also with the city of Wilson. They also completed an emotional intelligence inventory, which is a psychological, and then they also completed an in-depth survey online. And their responses to those three methods were evaluated independently. 3 different folks evaluated those, and they were selected with 2 other gentlemen to come to the assessment center process. The assessment center process is one in which we try to simulate the position of police chief. We run a variety of exercises that put the candidates in situations where they're acting as City of Winston-Salem police chief. For example, one of the exercises was the budget presentation, where we actually gave them the budget for the City of Winston-Salem, and we asked them to make a presentation on that, and then they were quizzed on their responses and their presentation by 3 folks, some of whom were city managers, others who were police chiefs, and we also had some community representatives involved with that. We also ran a simulated community meeting, and in that situation they were given some crime statistics and some background information about a community. They met with folks who were acting as residents, including actual members of the community, and they ran a meeting and were evaluated in terms of how well they did that. They were also given a situation in which they had to develop a written plan for how they would strategically respond to some key issues with the department. And last of all, they were evaluated in dealing with their direct reports. We had a role-play simulation in which they were dealing one-on-one with someone who was acting as an assistant chief. These 3 candidates all excelled in that process, and that's why they've been moved to this stage of the process. And so we're delighted that you all are here to meet them and find out a little bit more about them. And I can tell you they're all highly competent and capable of doing this job quite well. In fact, one of the comments I made this morning when we had a forum with the police department is that I would be pleased when we run a process, when my firm runs a process, I would be pleased to have any one of these candidates as a finalist, much less all 3. So just to give you a little bit of background on each one, I'm going to give you a brief description of each, and then I'm going to ask each one of them as I do that to stand up so you know who's who. The first person I'd like to introduce is Kerr Putney. Kerr is the assistant chief in Charlotte. He has 20 years of law enforcement experience and has spent his entire career with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. He currently serves, not as assistant chief, as a deputy chief in charge of the Investigative Services Group. In that position, he supervised the day-to-day investigation of all major crimes within his jurisdiction. Putney has a strong record of outreach to solicit citizen involvement and has implemented new methods for enhancing diversity within his agency. The next candidate I'd like to introduce is Wayne Scott. Wayne, if you'd stand up. Wayne has 20 years of law enforcement experience and has served with the Greensboro Police Department for his entire career. He currently serves as the deputy chief in charge of the Patrol Bureau. In that capacity, he oversees patrol officers and support functions related to the delivery of police services within that jurisdiction. Scott assists in the development and implementation of a bottom-up strategic plan to transform the agency into a national model for exceptional policing. The plan includes essential personnel behaviors, new mission, vision statements, a focus on technology, community partnerships, and innovative policing methods. The third candidate I'd like to introduce is Barry Roundtree. Barry is a 25-year veteran of the Winston-Salem Police Department and currently serves as the assistant chief in charge of the Investigative Services Bureau. He previously served as commander of the Field Services and Support Services Bureaus. Roundtree is committed to building community relationships and believes this can be accomplished by working with all members of the community to effectively reduce crime, ensure fair enforcement, and equal protection of the law for all citizens. So here's our process for this afternoon. We invite you all to ask questions of these candidates. If you would like to ask a question, we simply ask that you come up to the podium and speak into the microphone. And we do have a couple of rules that we want to follow, and the purpose of those rules is to make sure that everybody can participate who'd like to participate. Obviously, we've got a packed house, and we want to give everyone who would like to speak an opportunity to do so. So we're going to have to observe some time limits. We would ask that you limit your questions to 90 seconds. When you speak here, there's a little device here that'll light up a yellow light when you're down to your last 15 seconds, and then a red light when your time is up. And I'll also make sure that you're aware that that light has gone off. And the candidates, we've asked them to limit their responses to no more than 2 minutes, so that you have a chance to hear from each one of them as well. And this morning we had no problem with them observing those limitations, and I'm sure that everybody will support these ground rules so that we can get full involvement and give everybody an opportunity who'd like to do so to speak. And then we will wrap up. Probably about 5:15 we'll conclude the questions, and each of the candidates is prepared to give a 5-minute presentation on themselves and why they think they would make an excellent chief for the city of Winston-Salem. So we'll go ahead and begin. I invite our first speaker to come up and ask a question. Yes, ma'am, come on.
Hey, I'm Carolyn Highsmith from the Conoke Hills community. I'm the chairperson of the 330 Conoke Hills Neighborhood Watch Group and president of the Conoke Hills Community Association. And my question, well, first, I thank you for being finalists for police chiefs in the city of Winston-Salem. And my first question is, have you experienced any differences between various ethnic groups or cultures within your own police departments or between the police and your communities? If so, what have you learned that would be helpful for the job of police chief or for the entire police department that could help resolve some of the long-standing issues between the Winston-Salem community and its police department? And thank you.
Thank you. Just to make sure you're clear, what we're going to do is rotate speakers. We're going to ask all 3 candidates to speak. The first time we go through this iteration, Barry Roundtree will start, and then we'll just keep moving down the line. So Barry will begin.
Thank you, Ms. Highsmith. You had quite a long question. Could you clarify one portion of your question? I understood the part about working with different racial and ethnic groups.
And then any differences? What I'm asking for is your experiences as a police leadership command person in your own police departments and in your own communities. What are those? Have you had various ethnic and experiences dealing with various ethnic and cultural groups? And then if you have had those experiences, what have you learned that you can bring to our community to help us deal with long-standing issues between our police department and some cultural differences in the community?
Okay, thank you for your question. Yes, in my 25-year career, I have experienced differences in the racial groups here in the city. But what I've learned is if you treat people with respect, you treat people fair, that goes a long way. We're more alike than we are different. You know, we all want the same things in life, in my opinion. I think we all want to be safe, we all want to be protected, and we all want to be treated fairly when we deal with the police. So those are the things that I learned, those are the things that I practice, and those are the things that I carry out and I put forth to my officers under my command. So I think moving forward, there are things that we can learn. We can learn something from everyone. In this community, we have had some differences of opinion as far as race relations. But in my opinion, what we need to do is all work together. We need to communicate, have open dialogue, and have a period of healing, and I think we can move forward.
Okay, thank you. Kurt Putney.
Excellent question. I think we started off with the hardest pitch of all, and I appreciate that.
I thought I'd get right to the point.
Yes, ma'am, you did. Just to jump right into it, I think, obviously, yes, I come from a very diverse city. I have experiences with diverse cultures. across the Charlotte region. And as Roundtree said, the big thing is, at the end of the day, it starts with communication, and everybody wants the same thing. When they want the best for their family, they want a safe community, they pay their taxes to get just that. And it's incumbent upon us to deliver that. You ask also, what are some of the ways that we work to resolve some of those long-standing issues around race and ethnicity? And again, it starts with communication, starts with being honest and having an appreciation for the history. Winston-Salem has a very, very rich history. Earlier this morning, people talked about how can we move past it or overcome it. I don't think you ever do. I think you have to first respect it, celebrate it, and then you have to put it in a proper perspective. How we've been able to do that, how I've contributed to that is I chaired a committee called the Access, Equity, and Inclusion Committee within CMPD. There was a survey that went out that spoke to just this very thing, the division among races and ethnicities. What we saw was just what I'm telling you. When you talk to people, they want some of the same needs. They want safe communities. They want families with good education and opportunities. And the way to do that is to lean on your partners. There we work with the Community Building Initiative as a strong partner, the Latino Coalition, the Urban League. It's bigger than just policing. It's developing strong, vibrant communities. And those are the kinds of relationships that need to be built to move us forward around race, and not only race, but safe communities as a whole.
Okay. Next respondent will be Wayne Scott.
Carolyn, thank you for the question. I agree, it's an excellent question. It's a great way to start this forum, and thank you all for being here. Two words come to mind when we discuss these topics, and I think there are two words that I want to expand on. Those are assumptions and perceptions. And I say that because those are typically the things that create barriers when you look at law enforcement and the community in which we work with. They stand in the way of those partnerships. I come from Greensboro. We have an extremely diverse makeup of the city, and it's a constant, I won't use the word struggle, it's a constant exercise for the Greensboro Police Department to make sure that we're not falling down in the ways that we need to connect with our community. When I say assumptions, it's assumptions on both sides of that table. I think we deal constantly as police leaders, as organizational leaders, to make sure that our personnel do not make assumptions about the people they interact with, no matter what their background or where they're from or whatever may guide and direct them. But equally, it's incumbent upon us as police leaders to help educate the public about the assumptions they have about law enforcement at times. And that falls right into the second word I use, which is perceptions. For many, many years, perceptions of relationship issues between different parts of the community and police have existed. And for many, many years, police as a whole failed because we would say, there's no facts behind it, so therefore we would ignore it. Well, we discovered in Greensboro, and we've been very effective, that the perception is just as important as reality if you're on the side where you see something from a particular way. And I think it's just as important that as a police organization that we outreach, we discuss these things, we talk about them in open format. We use the word transparency a lot, true transparency, where we take the opportunity to break down those barriers and not silo ourselves on facts, on difference of opinions. And we have open dialogue, because it's been my experience as a deputy chief in Greensboro that once you get through that, we all have the same intentions. What Chief Roundtree spoke of, we all want to be safe. We all want to feel safe in our homes, and we on the policing community want to make sure that you get there. So that's kind of my experience in that area.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Who else would like to ask a question? Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Philip Carter, and I'd like to congratulate each of you for becoming our finalists. I'd also like to ask you this question and follow it with a statement as well. As you know, this city has a cloud over it. I'm sure you're aware of it. It's the Kevin Michael Smith case. So I would like to ask you, would you be willing to review it objectively? And not only that, but would you also be willing to utilize the license checkpoint in a way to whereby that would be reviewed objectively as well? Now, my statement other than that is this. Rather than seeking funds for airplanes and Hummers, will you be seeking funds to prevent crime, to help those that are in the midst of criminality, find jobs, get education, use grant money for those things? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Kerr Putney will be the first respondent.
Wow. All right. Sir, yes, very good question, all three of them. Starting off with the first one, silk plant forest. Obviously, there's a lot of concern and tension around that situation. Right now, I believe it's on appeal to the North Carolina Supreme Court, and I think that determination that has to run its course. I always say the big thing is you have to be able to trust your police department to do a good investigation. When we lose that trust, we have to do everything in our power to reestablish that. And as you heard Wayne say earlier, it's about transparency, but it goes beyond that. It is having you fully understand, be able to view, and then critique our performance. So substantive evidence that gives us the ability to see that there's another component to that investigation would be key, but right now we have to let it run its course through the justice process, through that appeal. The license checkpoint, sir, is specific for one simple reason. It is to make sure people are driving with valid licenses. I will never allow anybody to use a checkpoint for reasons other than that. And it goes beyond that as well. I know a compelling reason can be made that certain areas of town should have more checkpoints. I can tell you that is debatable. Traffic issues are all over the city, and the articulation and the justification, they're two different things. You need to be justified that there's a need for traffic issues to be addressed, and then you articulate that justification. That is the threshold. It has nothing to do with certain areas of town getting additional scrutiny around license checks. Lastly is funding. Funding's at a premium right now. Nobody's unaware of that. Winston-Salem is no different in the need for funding and having limited funding. So all funding that the organization, the police department seeks will be around crime fighting and public safety. It will be, you spoke to it, and I appreciate that. You spoke to not only crime fighting, but also talking about prevention. Problem solving and prevention that's my philosophy. That's how I do business. And prevention is around putting money into areas like Urban League, who can do job training. 75% of my county in Charlotte said first-time offenders deserve a second chance. Those are areas that I would seek funding around as well. Because just because somebody has made one mistake, I thank goodness one mistake doesn't do you in career-wise, or I wouldn't be sitting before you today. So not only in crime fighting, sir, but crime prevention and giving people that additional chance to get their life on track. I want everybody to be able to contribute to the tax base, and that would be how we'd go about it. Thank you, sir.
Wayne Scott.
Okay. Thank you for that question, Mr. Carter. The Kevin Michael Smith case, the Silk Florist case, it's no surprise that this was going to come up. So I and I think probably all of my colleagues up here, I tried to do as much review of that case as I could. Unfortunately, being from the outside, I don't have privilege to all the information, but I will tell you what I've seen so far. Much as Chief Putney said, I believe that case has really two journeys. One, it has to work its way through the legal system, and I think we're bound to that. But secondly, a lot of questions have come up. Will the Winston-Salem Police Department reopen this case? I will tell you this. I will obligate the fact that I will evaluate the case should I be chosen as chief. I will sit down and review every single issue within that case. And if justice is not served as a chief, I would reopen the case. That's the bottom line. We seek justice. We seek justice for a victim. There's a victim of the Silk Florist case here who needs to have justice. There very well may need to be justice seek for Mr. Smith if he's not the perpetrator. And that's the ultimate goal. What we do with that case has to go before a judicial official. It's up to our district attorneys. It's up to ultimately to the judge and the court system. So I will tell you, being from Greensboro, we have dealt with the Duke Law Innocence Commission. We've done just that. We were approached by less than 18 months ago about a case involving a homicide conviction where once the evidence was brought to us, the Greensboro Police Department, we took the evidence back to the SBI and asked for review. And it so happened that that case was, because of DNA, we actually had someone that was unjustly serving time. And again, justice has to be served. That's the bottom line. When it comes to the licensed checkpoints, I agree a lot with Chief Putney. I have a strong background in traffic. I was actually a motorcycle cop at one point in my career. Traffic checkpoints are designed for traffic checks. And I also believe that, you know, we need to look at where they're most effective when it comes to working through traffic. What we find a lot of times that's related to crashes or different kinds of data. Now, there are opportunities where we go out and we interact with citizens, whether it be post a traumatic event like a homicide, and we may hand out flyers in neighborhoods or what have you. Those aren't traffic checkpoints, and I think those are driven by the incidents of the neighborhoods. But when we come to stopping people for no reason, and we use the premise of a checkpoint, I believe it needs to be traffic related, and I think it needs to be fairly distributed throughout our city. Just looking at the numbers, I will tell you that the Winston-Salem Police Department has quite a bit more traffic checkpoints than the city of Greensboro does. And that is a concern of mine. If I become your chief, I'd like to know why. Lastly, when we talk about crime prevention, and I'm glad you spoke about that, and I think you'll hear all of us talk about it, I believe in a problem-solving organization. I believe that every person within the police department needs to look at crime prevention. It's wonderful that we do a great job responding to a crime, but I want to stop it before it ever happens. I don't want you to be a victim. And there are strategies out there that work. I will tell you in the last year, Greensboro PD, we've dropped our crime rate by 9.2%. That equates to 1,300 less victims. And we're very proud of that, and we want to continue to drive that down. That's how it works. And I actually think it was 4 questions because the last one was funding. The fourth question about funding, I believe that there are a lot of avenues out there. There are a lot of fundings available, and I agree with you. I think it ties into crime prevention. I will say that one of the projects that we're undergoing in patrol for GPD is we've recently got just a small grant to work on shoplifting, where we're doing a diversion program for first-time offenders. So I'm an advocate for that. I believe that those opportunities are out there and we need to seize them. Thank you.
Barry Roundtree.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. We've worked together quite a bit over the years and put a lot of things in place to make the community safer. I guess to answer your first question concerning the Silk Plank Forest case and involving Kevin Michael Smith, the police department has done a lot of things already to look at that case. I would be open to looking at any new information that we have, because I don't want an innocent person to be in prison either. I think it's right for him, I think it's right for the community, and I think that can also start the healing process. So yes, if I'm selected as chief, I will be open to look at that case and do everything that I can that's legally right now, because it is an appeal, but I will be open to look at that case again. As far as the perception of the checkpoints and some of the things that have been done, we do have some new things in place so that we don't have that perception in the community where one part of the city thinks that we have more checkpoints than the other. We don't want any of the community to be targeted for any reason, by race or anything like that. So we do want to make sure that we get it right. If you look at our numbers now, our checkpoint numbers have gone down quite a bit, substantially. So that process is still in place, and we'll move forward working along those lines. I think the next question was dealing with specific to grant funds. No, I don't plan on buying a Hummer or an Air Wing. I think that we do need to use our funds to prevent crimes. We have a lot of opportunities where we can help youth with prevention and intervention. Presently, I'm assigned to the United States Attorney's Middle District Advisory Team. And one of the things that I initiated in the police department for our Violent Crimes Task Force is that what we're trying to do, we're trying to help the ex-offenders. I mean, we can't lock everybody up. We need to get them jobs, we need to get them training, we need to get them education so they can go out and they can be productive citizens. Number one, it's going to be a win-win situation for the police, and it's going to be a win-win situation for the community. Number one, if they're working, they're less likely to be out committing crimes. If they're working, they can pay taxes to help the city. So those are the things that I look at. I also work with several different community agencies who work with offenders. We want the offenders to be productive, we want them to be gainfully employed, and we want them to have the things that we have also. So those are the things that I think are important, where we do have to work with the offenders, and specifically our youth offenders. We don't want them to get to the point where their next step is going to be a long-term prison stay.
Okay. Thank you. Great question. Who would like to ask? Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
My name is Sarah Langdon. This is Ms. Donna O'Reilly. We are both spouses of Winston-Salem Police Department officers. And we're here today to speak on behalf of Behind the Blue Line. Behind the Blue Line is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and our purpose is to support officers and families of the Winston-Salem Police Department. Our group is comprised of family members, spouses, and friends of Winston-Salem police officers. In the last 5 years, we provided well over $2,500 in monetary support to officer families and $3,000 in scholarships. In addition to helping families financially, we prepared and delivered meals, contributed manual labor, covered basic needs, and provided emotional support in time of need.
So in your current position, how have you supported your officers' families, and how do you see your role in supporting Winston-Salem Police Department families should you become chief?
Okay. First respondent will be Wayne Scott.
First off, I'd like to thank you both you ladies for what you do for the officers here. That's great that you take part of that. In our current position, the Greensboro Police Department has several outreach programs, and a couple that we used to have that I would like to see started back. When I was a young officer, we even had a spouse support group. That's something that has probably died off over time, and that's really something that, as the chief of police, I'd like to see start back. To tell you how we as an organization, GPD, we support our officers' families, it's a multifaceted approach. Probably one of the best things that we've created in the last 18 months or so is we have a police foundation in Greensboro. It's a group of business individuals, philanthropists from across the city that support us. And I think you probably have the same base of people here, even though you don't have a foundation. What we do is we created an instrument by which those people in our community could come in and help. And they do so. They support with a monthly meal provided to our officer of the month that is extended to their family. We take them out to a nice restaurant, and part of that is so that they will know and feel like they are part of the family, and so are the spouses, and that's important to us. You know, we participate. We have a Greensboro Police Officers Association, which is very similar to what your PBA does here, which is an outreach. We've been very fortunate, and I'll just say that. The Greensboro Police Department hasn't had the dramatic incidents and the loss that Winston-Salem has received in the last 10 or 12 years, and we've been very fortunate, and I'm thankful for that. But we still have had our share of it. As the chief of Winston-Salem, I think that is important. I think it's important to honor those who have made not only the ultimate sacrifice, but make that sacrifice every day. This is an appropriate time. Last week was Police Memorial Week. You know, we had several services in Greensboro. We also work with our GMA, which is the Guilford Merchants Association, to put on a large banquet dinner. So we believe in supporting and honoring our officers, and there are a number of different small scholarships throughout the community. And I believe that's an excellent opportunity to bring out that silent majority, if you will, that really do support the police department and engage them.
Barry Roundtree.
Again, thank you, Sarah, for your question. What you do is very important, not only for the community, but also for our officers in service. In 2007, the Blue Line Foundation was started after Sergeant Howard Pluff was killed on Jonestown Road. Your group provides not only monetary funds, but also just support for those families, and that is important. Since I've been at the police department, there's been 8 officers killed, 8 in 25 years, and it hurts. It hurts the police department. It hurts all the families. So what we have to do is continue to support those families. We do honor the families and the officers killed on the anniversary date of that death with a service in front of the police station during the anniversary. Last month was Police Memorial Week, and we honored the families for the officer service at that time. So what you do is important, and we hope that you continue on. And I wish it was a lot more that the entire community could do for the officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty.
Kerr Putney.
Ladies, thank you so much. That's a heartfelt thank you for the work you do. What have I done similar? We do have a police foundation. It is privately funded, and they have a huge funding drive with a luncheon every year. We have one of the people on the board is Jordan Gross of the Panthers. I can't speak enough about my Panthers. And they come out and they provide exactly what you're talking about, the funding, but also we have the big thing that we do is policy review around the support of officers. We've reached out for psychological services. We're having a lot of people come home from Afghanistan, officers who've been serving our country, who need that support. And it's not just when we have a loss of life that we need to be thinking about that. Officers have seen, our veterans, our officers have seen a lot of things that we need to help them work through. And that's a part of the partners that we've established. What would I do here? I would reach out to you and support your efforts. I would also reach out and have like-minded people assist with that effort, especially businesses who can contribute. We want to talk about the support, but you can't do some of the things that they need without the money. So my job would be to push for that support, help you market those efforts. Around other things that I'd look to do, I come back to the psychological services piece. I think what we have to do in policing too is remove that stigma. It all starts with communication, having our officers willing to talk through those issues and reaching out to service providers who can assist us. So my role would be to support you, to market for you, and to get like-minded individuals to support as well.
Thank you. Next question, please. Yes, ma'am. And then we'll get, go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Hazel Watson, and I'm the co-chair of the Neighborhood Watch Association for number 331 in Cone Oak Hills area. My question is this. As the new police chief, how will you work to maintain and improve upon the current police-community partnership as new challenges occur in the community and within the Winston-Salem Police Department? Right now we have a good police-community partnership, and we would like to see that built upon. So how would you work with that?
Leave her back to Barry.
Okay. Thank you for the question, Ms. Watson. I think we've worked together in the past also. What I would do is continue to work with the groups that we have now, our community watch, neighborhood watch associations, just to make that stronger. We do have a very strong crime prevention unit in place who are willing to work with any community partners who want to strengthen their neighborhoods. We do know that crime is prevented not only by the police, but it's prevented by the citizens. So we can't do our job if we don't have people in place like yourself to work with us so we can make this a safer place for the entire community. Any ideals, any suggestions, any information that you have, I'll be willing to listen to you, and also my officers will be willing to listen to you so we can make things better and we can work together as a community.
Okay, Kerr Putney.
Again, I applaud your service. Neighborhood Watch is a program that really works. It gets people engaged, and it also demonstrates to people the power they have when they come together and determine what will be tolerated in their neighborhood and what will not. So I applaud your effort. What I do to maintain and improve, I would try to get more volunteers just like yourself. And I'd reach out to you to help model that, to help tell your story, your experience, because there are quite a few neighborhoods that need to be organized, need to be empowered. My role is to do this, just that. Philosophically, community policing is how I do business. I know no other way. It's about community partnerships and problem-solving efforts. You epitomize that. What I do is look to replicate those successes across the city. The other thing I'd look to do is reach out to partners who can assist in that. We have in Charlotte what's called a community university, neighborhood university, which teaches people how to take accountability and ownership of their neighborhoods. Something as small as teaching people how to call in for services that the city agencies provide, the county agencies provide, helping them differentiate who does what, and also giving them the the education and information so that they can structure their neighborhoods to be effective. Having block captains, talking about what it takes, and also rewarding nosy neighbors. We need nosy neighbors. We applaud nosy neighbors because nosy neighbors are better than any alarm system you can ever invest in. So in short, what I do, ma'am, is replicate your success and start an informal competition that will culminate in the National Night Out in August so that we could celebrate these kinds of positives, because heaven knows you're going to hear about all the negative.
Wayne Scott.
Equally, I do thank you for your question as well. We talked a lot about partnerships. That's the heart of Community Watch. It's a partnership. What would I do to support it? I will tell you some of the things that we've done in Greensboro, and we've been very successful, and we're very proud of. One of the things I'd like to see brought here is the Chiefs Council, which is where we asked a rotating number of members from all the community watches to meet with the chief at least once a month. I think it's an excellent opportunity to have that face-to-face conversation. It doesn't even have to be an agenda. It's just an opportunity to come in, tell us how you feel. We even push that out, and we have a given council in each patrol division that we do that as well. So I'm a firm believer that we need that face-to-face communication. We encourage our patrol commanders, in addition to the face-to-face, to either do newsletters per district or to do an email chain. One of the things that, when you look up here and you see all these older guys in law enforcement, we've had to learn is about electronics. One of the greatest tools that we have available to us right now is social media, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, all those things that the police department has, Winston-Salem PD has, but I think it can be utilized better and more efficiently and more effectively to create that communication chain that you're talking about. What can we do? Well, one of the things that we have found is that we can take your Community Watch group and we can help create some hands and feet to the Community Watch action. One of the things we've been very successful at is the police department is going out and basically fostering that relationship where perhaps there's a B&E of auto issue, and unfortunately we're plagued with those throughout this part of the state. We need to put flyers out. Well, your Community Watch may want to put flyers out. We'll reach out and go to the local high school and energize possibly one of the athletic teams, get the football team to come out on a weekend. That solves a lot for us. They come out, they start being the hands and feet of Community Watch. It gets those young folks involved, which is extremely important. It breaks down those barriers where they may traditionally not see the police in the right manner, and then gives us the opportunity to put hands and feet to your mission in your community. We also have something very similar to what Kurt Putney was describing. We call it Neighborhood Congress, and I think that it's an excellent opportunity where we start to bring in Community Watch folks, and we talk about not only policing issues, but a lot of the other issues that affect communities. And we reach out and we energize the other members of the city organization to be there, whether it be code enforcement or it be Parks and Rec, those kind of things, so we can help harbor those relationships. We mentioned National Night Out. I'm a huge supporter of it. Greensboro has been an award winner for, I believe, 22 of the last 24 years. So we believe that. We believe it's an excellent opportunity. We even encourage our Citizen Academy to hold their own National Night Out event. So it's what all of us said. It's about energizing the community and making that relationship better and stronger. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next question, please. Yes, ma'am, and then we'll get you in the back next.
I'm Ann Hemrick with the Canoke Hills Neighborhood Watch, and I am the chairperson of 347. I would like to ask you, as the new police chief, how will you continue to maintain open lines of communication up and down the police chain of command and from the police department to the community? For example, monthly news conferences, chat with the chief, mobile van in the neighborhoods, community meetings, and et cetera. But one thing that I'm really interested in myself is the weekly crime reports that Chief Cunningham did every week to keep us informed in what was going on all over town and how many were arrested for this and how many were arrested for that. That is one of my biggest concerns, and I am a nosy neighbor.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you. First respondent will be Kurt Putney.
Again, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for being a nosy neighbor. We need more of them. Again, very good point you raised about communicating up and down the chain. I think the difficulty always for a new chief is how do you make sure people buy into your message? How do you make sure people understand from the top level and down to the lowest level where the rubber meets the road? The best way to do that is face-to-face conversations. You can't get away from it. The first 6 months of a new chief are some long days and nights because you got to meet everybody you possibly can because that's your constituency. Not only that, those are the people putting their lives in your hands, their safety in your hands. So that initial conversation has to begin and continue. In the organization, it's not as difficult. You have staff meetings, you have conversations, but the chief's chats, I was hoping that was a novel concept that I came up with. I guess not so much, but that is a very good example. But the other thing, though, is having conversations with levels, especially initially, where I'm just talking to assistant chiefs, I'm just talking to captains, I'm just talking to lieutenants, so that it's unfiltered information. I'm sure a lot of times I'll get more than I want to hear, but I hear what I need to know, and that's the key in that. Community-wise, though, you touched on it. I appreciate your question because you almost answered it fully for me, and I thank you for that. Weekly crime reports, newsletters. We do monthly newsletters and quarterly newsletters, and it also gives you information for your neighborhood. The big thing for me, though, it's not just about crime. I know at the end of the day, we want crime to continue to go down. That's why we're employed. We're crime fighters. No mistake about it. First and foremost, we're crime fighters. We also have to be community police officers and problem solvers. We need to be dealing with things that are substantive issues to you beyond crime. We have to be educating and empowering people. Again, back to the neighborhood watch, putting you in control of that community, that neighborhood, so that if people want to act up, there's no anonymity. You're going to know who they are, and you're going to tell us. No snitching doesn't apply to us. The other big thing is just as Wayne Scott was talking about, technology, pushing information out the way people receive it. I know not everybody's wired on the internet. Our younger people are pushing information out through Twitter. Don't ask me how that works. It's like magic to me, but we do it. Also email blasts, geo-notifies, flyers. But the big thing, though, that I'll stop how I started. The big thing is face-to-face conversations. Expectations are going to be laid out for everybody in the organization. And how do I hold them accountable? That also is magic. We set expectations. We reward behavior that meets those expectations. We bring other behavior in line. And we do that upfront, quickly, and then we move forward.
Okay. Wayne Scott.
I think I had an opportunity to answer some of this on the prior one, but I'll review very quickly. Again, face-to-face communication is ideally important. And the fact that the same message goes out. All police organizations face this issue where we don't all speak in one voice. And that's something that I would like to see we work on. There are strategies that we can do that. But when we work with the community, getting you the accurate information as quickly as possible is extremely important. One of the things we just launched in Greensboro is a computer program. It's called crimemapping.com. And it's an incredible piece of software. And I would tell you, it's really something that I would like to see brought to Winston-Salem. Through this one piece of software, I can sit down with you for 5 minutes, or any of our officers can at a community meeting, and we can show you how you can map the data in your own neighborhood. Not only that, you can get alerts of crimes when they occur, either through email or through a text message, or there's all kinds of things. So that the technology is actually limitless. We had a discussion just prior to this meeting talking about the crime analysis section that Winston PD has. That's an area that we can grow on what they do. It is vitally important because information is the superhighway of policing. Earlier this morning, we had an opportunity to speak with the officers, and I told them something I'm going to tell you. If I become their chief, they're going to get tired of hearing something come out of my mouth. That is ownership. The key to all of this is that every officer, every beat officer, takes ownership to their area, to your problems. That's the bottom line. And I believe that. I believe that at every level. That is the key to problem-oriented policing. We have short-term, long-term, and midterm, or short-term, midterm, and long-term goals. And all of us, from the chief down, have to take ownership. And once we take ownership in that community, in that neighborhood, it becomes our problem as well. And that is exactly the way you as a community watch person should view it, and that's how our officers should respond to it. It's somewhere that we continuously must grow and evaluate how effective we are. Thank you.
Barry Roundtree.
Thank you, Ms. Hammer, for the question. Very good question. If I'm selected as chief, you won't have to worry about not receiving the information that you've been receiving over the past. I'll make it a priority where we will continue to provide you and any other citizens with the information that they need concerning their neighborhood. As I stated earlier, we can't do this job without you. We need you. We need the nosy neighbor. We need the person that's looking out their window 24 hours a day. So you're not, you're not going to miss anything as far as not receiving the information. As far as the chat with the chiefs, it may be a different spin to it, but I think that is a good idea because the chief has an opportunity to meet with the citizens in their neighborhoods and around the city where we can have face-to-face conversations. I'm not an email type person unless I have to be. I'd rather talk to you face-to-face. I think that's the best way to get information across. When you send information on email and different Twitter, I don't know how to use that, but other different mediums, you lose a lot. You gain a lot when you talk to people face-to-face. You see how sincere they are. You see what they mean. You can see the expression on their face. So I do agree with that. You also mentioned community meetings. That's very important that we attend community meetings. The police are present. They hear from the citizens. That way we can hear everything that's going on in your neighborhood. We can hear your concerns. You can hear what you think the police needs to do more of. So I do think that's important. What we have is trust talks where we want to get the community together so we can talk about things so we can make the community safer. We can build the trust in the community because that's going to go a long way too as far as preventing crimes and working with the entire community. As far as the crime reports that you spoke of, we do have a unit specifically designed to send the community those reports. So you're not going to stop receiving your reports just because I'm selected as chief. You get that and even more. I think the more information you receive, the better, because you have more power, more information to give your community. Also, you can run those same type reports yourself. You can sit in the luxury of your home and go to the police department's website, on the Police to Citizens website, and you can see all the crime data that's in your neighborhood. We think that's important so you can share the information with your community watch group, and you can use that at your disposal. If you think there's a problem in your neighborhood, you can then pick up the phone, and again, it will be a priority for the police department to continue in these type of efforts.
Back next to last row, you've had your hand up several times. Come on up. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Valerie Sprague, resident here. First, I wanted to thank you all for your statements of commitment to the community and the unity that we all seek. My question has to do with what your vision is for the department internally, retaining your officers, attracting officers, and how to reinforce their commitment to the city. What your vision for that would be, funding, et cetera.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Wayne Scott will respond.
Thank you for that question. I'm actually going to answer that in two parts. This actually came up this morning in our employee forum, and I think I was the first one to get the answer it then too. So
It's my fault.
what's the vision? What's my vision? I will tell you that currently the Winston-Salem Police Department does not have a strategic plan in place, and I think that is one of the priorities for the new chief. I believe that creating that vision is important, but I think it's important that we look at that on three different regards. What the employees see as important, what our city management sees as important, and what our community sees important. And one doesn't outweigh the other, in my opinion. I think all those stakeholders have to be brought together before we can talk about what the vision of the police department is. I think it's important, and that's something that the new chief will need to get started on quite early, because it is important that we have a good strategic plan in place, and we have the opportunity to get involvement of all those people so that we're all going the same direction. As it specifically relates to our employees, and you mentioned retention and some of the other things around keeping our officers, I think is the gist of what you were saying. That too came up this morning, and it's a great concern amongst the employees. So that makes it a great concern for me as your chief, I will tell you. I've looked at it as best I can, the outside looking in. I think that probably if you look at a market survey, the pay is a little bit behind for the police department. Coming from Greensboro, I will tell you that we just finished basically a 5-year plan in which we started correcting some of our officers' pay for market issues. That is a slow-moving process, one that requires a lot of planning and a lot of conversation on behalf of the chief with the city manager, because obviously these are tight budget times. You know, I read the headline of the Winston-Salem Journal while I was at lunch, and this city, like the city of Greensboro, has budget issues. One of the things I told the group this morning, and I mean this from my heart, is retention is not all about money. Now, I think it's important. I think that that's something that the new chief needs to look at, needs to address, needs to talk about pay plans, because I think it's important that public safety is a little different than the rest of the city. But retention also revolves around the way we value our employees. And I think that as a community, I look across here, and obviously this community values their employees. If we can find ways that we can bridge that gap and explain that and let our employees know that, I think that gains us retention. I think if we show our employees opportunities outside just purely financial, if we allow them opportunities to do things within the organization that interest them, if we look at diversity in assignments, if we look at the different things, the intrinsic value things that come about, and as an organization, what can we do? Because the mere fact is there's not a lot of money in the city coffers right now. So there's a lot there to look at. That would be one of my priorities early on. I think one of probably 6 months to a year, that's one of the major things. You have to get down, you have to whittle down to exactly what's driving that retention and start to address it. The way I intend to do that is I plan on having employee forums, very similar to this, an open format, and hearing from those employees, looking at exit interviews, looking at those things that drive that overall. And it's kind of a big approach to a big problem. And as it said, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So I think it's important that we do that, and that's a priority for me.
Barry Roundtree.
Okay. Very good question again. Some of the points that we talked about this morning, I know you heard that already. But my vision would be for the employees and the community to have a world-class police organization. As Chief Scott mentioned, presently we don't have an up-to-date strategic plan. The last one that was updated was when I chaired the committee, and I headed the committee up, where we actually had a strategic plan, where we had input from the employees, we had input from the community. We did telephone surveys. We did surveys of the community. You have to have a plan in order to know where you're going. A strategic plan is pretty much like your road map. If you don't have a map, you don't know where you're going, you're going to get lost. So that is one of the things that, if I'm selected as chief, that's one of the first priorities that I will work on and get in place as soon as possible. As far as employee retention, right now we have had a lot of employees to leave the agency. Now, some of that was through normal attrition. We lost about 20 employees last year to retirements and just regular separations. As far as retaining employees, as Chief Scott mentioned, I agree with part of it, but some of it I don't. Money is not everything, but money is the deciding factor when people choose to stay here in Winston-Salem. You know, it's not everything. You can do other things to keep employees here, as far as some alternatives to get them compensation. If it's not money, we could look at strategically giving them, just say for example, increase their vacation and holiday banks. Those are things that don't really cost a lot of money as far as in that paycheck, but it is something. You do have to value your employee. You have to invest in your employees if you want them to stay here. Law enforcement is a competitive field. You do have law enforcement agencies around the state, around the country, giving officers signing bonuses. We're not in that position here in Winston-Salem. I wish we could do it. But we do need to make our profession competitive, where young officers will want to come here and want to stay here. You know, when I was 23, when I started here at this police department, I'm 49 now, but I wasn't looking at the long haul as far as retirement. I was looking at what is this city going to give me right now? So that's the key in recruiting. It's easy to recruit when you have money, when you can pay these top salaries, but it's tough when you're dealing with things where where you're not as competitive as other agencies. So that's where I see where we are kind of sliding by the wayside, where we're not as competitive as some of the larger cities and even cities our size. So what I would like to do is have an opportunity to sit down, do what we can to work with the council, the city management, so we can try to keep these employees. It's actually cheaper to keep them than to keep hiring new employees and running training classes. Because number one, we're gonna lose a lot of experience every time employees leave the police department. We need to keep experienced employees here. That's gonna help with our crime reduction because they experience, they know the community. We don't want them to leave, we wanna keep them here. So those are the things that I would look at doing if I'm selected as chief. Thank you.
Kirk Putney.
Very, very good question. I'll start with the vision. First and foremost, the vision is pretty simple. It's to build and maintain vibrant and safe communities. I like to have bold goals. So my goal would be to make Winston-Salem the safest city in America. How do we go about that? Well, both of these guys have already talked about the strategic plan, and I'd back into that. I'd first want to look, listen, and feel. I want to hear the priorities. I want to hear the values and the things that are important. We talked about history, and it took me 44 years of life to really care much about history. I guess I'm starting to get to where I understand that I won't be living forever, so I value that history. Having people understand, appreciate, and respect that history. And then you said something else. You said a word that really resonates with me. You talked about commitment. Part of that vision is having officers commit to something greater than themselves. We're not in here just for the money. We're not in here in this line of work just for incentives, although they are important. We want to make the best possible lives for our families. I don't make light of that. It is very important. That is something that I'm willing to fight for and have. But the ultimate goal is vibrant, safe communities. Again, allowing everyone to work on those issues. A lot of officers like to come in and they like to talk about issues around pay, and I get that. My question, Mom never liked me to do this, but I like to answer their question with a question. It is, what are we willing to contribute? What are we willing to sacrifice? Sometimes you're asking for money and you lose that in an increase in health care. You got to be careful what you ask for sometimes. And I want them, as a cross-section, I'd pull officers in and have them think through this deeply. Commit themselves to this community, and then think through what we're asking for on a compensation package, what we're looking for when it comes to health care and those benefits. Because as Roundtree was saying, I didn't come into this job to make a career of it. I never thought I'd be a police officer, first in my family to do so. And I think it is, back to the vision, it is a calling. I think I'm here for a reason. I think officers who sit behind you there are here for a reason. It's a choice that they made sometimes subconsciously because they were called to this line of work. Also, when we get to the strategic plan, we want to talk about making sure it speaks to the core values, not only of us as a city and the organization, but the people who matter most. We need to talk specifically about priorities in the community, in neighborhoods. We need to talk to how that works collaboratively across the city with other city services. And then we need to specifically look for incentives for officers around training and development. I'm a part of a leadership project that's a national project right now that is being marketed by the major city chiefs and sponsored by the Bureau of Justice Assistance. I want to bring those kinds of opportunities to the officers, the great officers that you have here in Winston-Salem, and build on that. It starts with your vision. You create that strategic plan. You get everybody who's going to have a piece of that to weigh in, and then you start marching forward towards that goal of being the safest community in the country.
Next question. Yes, sir, in the back. I'm sorry, man. We'll get you next.
Good afternoon. I'm Reginald McCaskill, and I'm not from the Canoke area. I am representing the northwest side of town in Winston-Salem. Serve as the program director for the Northwest Piedmont Service Corps. Have been with that agency for the last 28 years. Of course, specifically, my concerns address the needs of at-risk youth and adults. The approach specifically that you would take to continue the connection that the police department currently has in place in addressing needs and issues concerning them. Question number one. Number two, why Winston-Salem? Why do you want to be the police chief in Winston-Salem, North Carolina? Number three, lay out your plan of action for your first 100 days of plan of action of what your plan of implementation would be in carrying out your first 100 days as if you were the President of the United States. Thank you.
First respondent to that question will be, let's see, I've lost track. Whose turn is it now?
I think you,
It's Barry's turn. Okay.
I will get the three-part question. Thank you, Mr. McCaskill, for your question. Very good question. I think first question was how we go about working with at-risk youth and adults. I think that's very important that the police department takes a role. It may not be the primary role, but at least we partner with our community partners in working with at-risk youth and adults. And the reason why I say that, because we don't want to lose a generation to crime, where our entire generation is in trouble, they're in prisons, and it's hard for them to get out at that point. I've done a lot of work working with our community partners in working with at-risk youth and also at-risk adults. Presently, I serve on several boards, the Offender Connection Network and the Northwest Piedmont Service Corps, who specifically target at-risk youth and adults who have been in trouble. Again, I mentioned earlier that I'm the police department's representative for the United States Attorney's Office advisory team and our Violent Crimes Task Force. And what I did to restructure that is to bring in the community partners to work with the offenders or the ex-offenders. Number one, we want to provide them housing. We want to help them provide jobs, training, and all the other wraparound services to make their life more effective, and they can carry out their duties and have a good life as you and I do. I think that's important, again, because even though our primary function, we're law enforcement officers, we also want to help the entire community. We want to work with the community, and we want to help them in any way we can. And the second question was, why Winston-Salem? I want to be the chief of police in Winston-Salem because this is my community. This is my police department, and I do say my. Again, earlier I stated that I started working here, I was 23 years old. This is the only full-time job that I've ever held. I think I have a proven track record as far as being fair, being a proven leader in the community, and I've worked with the community. I think that I've paid my dues here in this community. I've been loyal to the community. We just celebrated our 100th anniversary, and I've been here for a quarter of that century, over 25 years. You asked what would my plan of action be for the next 100 days. That's kind of tough. I know if I'm selected, there'll be a lot of meetings, there'll be a lot of planning, meeting with council members. That's one of the things that I plan on doing first. I'm more of a listener than I am a speaker, because I like to listen. I'm a critical thinker. I listen, and then I formulate plans on what I'm gonna do. And by working with the community, meeting with the community partners, I think I'll learn exactly what you want in your police department. Number one, that's important because it is your police department. I plan on meeting with the employees in that 100 days. All the special interest groups in the community, like the NAACP, the Hispanic Coalition, the Winston-Salem Ministers Conference. And I think it's important for the police department to keep a relationship with those type of organizations because we do have to serve the entire community. By meeting with them, I'll get a feel of what they want, what they think, and their concerns for the community. that 100 days will go back pretty quick, I'm sure. But those are the things that I would plan on doing, along with other things to make the police department safe, make it efficient, so we'll have a world-class police organization.
Kerr Putney.
Thank you. Another good question. I'll address the first one about at-risk youth. That is well within my wheelhouse. The partners have already been highlighted. You're talking about Urban League, a strong partner that I utilize now. I told you about the first-time offender project. 75% of the people surveyed in Mecklenburg County said first-time low-level offenders deserve a second chance. I want to expound on that. I want to talk to you specifically about, since y'all brought it up, I don't have to, about race, because what really impacts me deeply is, again, I never thought I'd come here. I think I'm here for a reason in this line of work. And what I see is a lot of the offenders that I deal with look just like me. But for a strong mother, and I hope she's watching, hey, Mom, but for a strong mother, I could have been in their shoes. That never escapes me. The other thing that I want you to know is when we talk about the opportunity for diversion is there's money out there to do that. I've partnered with Youth Development Initiative back in Charlotte, YDI, who helps with skills training. A lot of our young kids don't quite know how to act and to do things that won't impact them long term. They don't know the impact of that first felony on them career-wise. And what this grant allows us to do is catch the low-level offenders, use that as a leverage. We don't arrest them. We take the report, and they determine, based on their participation in the program, what happens from there. The vast majority so far have been cleared exceptionally because the victim didn't want to prosecute, given the fact that they actually went to skills training. The other thing, though, is along this line is I'm not going to ignore the second and third time low-level offenders either. They are kids. I don't want to hang that first felony on people just because I think, and my rules have said, that you only get one opportunity that we're gonna do away with. You should get more than one or two bites at the apple sometimes. Why Winston-Salem? I'll come back to that one. But my plan of action, I've already touched on a lot of it. Look, listen, and feel. I respect the culture. I respect the history. I want to know directly with communication. I want to hear it directly from you as a resident of Winston-Salem, and internally. I want to hear it directly from the officers at every level, because we got to establish a culture of engagement and trust. The only way to do that is to open the mouth and have those conversations, and then back it up with action. You've heard us continually talk about strategic plan. I think we all went to the same school of presentation. So I just wanted to throw that out there in case you didn't know. Then you follow that up, putting it in writing, publicizing it, putting it on our website so everybody knows what we're going to do, and more importantly, how we're going to do it. And lastly, why not Winston-Salem? If my mom's listening, I hope she stops. Why not? I think Winston-Salem is the opportunity. I hear, and let me be honest with you, I came up here going, I don't quite know if this is the right opportunity. I don't quite know. I'm looking out at an audience telling you, yes, I'm convinced it is. I'm not begging for you to give me the opportunity. I think we've all earned the opportunity. What I can tell you is, whoever your next chief is, you won't be disappointed. Why me? I want to make sure that, back to what I said earlier about my vision, this needs to be a vibrant, safe community, one of the safest and best we can make it. But to do that, we have to embrace our past, we have to celebrate our history, and then we have to collectively agree that we're going to take steps to move it forward. That's why me, or I should say, if my mom weren't listening, why not me? I think I have a lot to offer too. Thank you.
Wayne Scott.
That's a tough one to follow. First thing I want to do is say hello to Kerr's mother. Hello to my mom, too.
I'm sure she's watching.
To answer the questions laid out there, kind of the same exact thing, at-risk youth. Things that came to mind, I sit and jotted down some notes. There are a ton of programs out there where police have the opportunity to be mentor and coaches to some of our at-risk youth. And I believe it's an extremely worthy cause, and we need to be involved, whether it be Big Brother and Big Sister or Lunch Buddy programs, to the Police Athletic League. there are just tons of opportunities out there, and I would encourage our officers to do that, even to the point that I think that we will allow them to use city time to participate in those. I think it's important. I think it's part of the city, and coming up to the table with some resources. Diversion programs. I mentioned earlier one that we have in patrol for GPD is a first-time shoplifting program, where we're taking these first-time offenders that fit within these categories. We're partnering with the big box retail stores, and we're bringing them into an environment hosted by the police department, and we're having a conversation. We're getting the parents involved. That's the only way that we can affect the change. We can't arrest our way out of it. We've got to pull those parents in. We have to educate the parents very often, and break down those barriers. And as Chief Putney said, there are funds out there available. They're tough, but we've been able to secure some, and I believe that's a priority. We continue to go down that diversion road. One of the things we don't want to forget when we talk about our youth are our school resource officers. What a tremendous resource we have. I know for a fact you all are blessed that you added to your school resource officers here in Winston last year. That is an incredible mentor that's in the school just about every single day. We give them the opportunity to go and expand that role. We encourage them to lead the way for other officers, particularly our younger officers. Very often when you look at a high school, when you look at some of our young officers, there's less than 4 or 5 years difference in their age. But as Chief Putney said, some of them are down a totally different career path. It's a great opportunity. It's a great recruiting tool. Some of the formalized things I've been involved in is junior achievement, the Youth Citizen Academy. I think there's a solidity of opportunities out there, and I do support those. Every time that we can divert an issue, we save a resource. We save dollars. That's just the sheer fact of it. Same thing for the adult side. I think Chief Roundtree mentioned some of the great ones. It is much cheaper for the police department to put monies into those programs and stop that reoffending. And I won't go and belabor that point any further. Why Winston? I'm going to put that one at the end too. I'll come back in just a minute. First 100 days. Well, considering I'll probably be working 16 hours a day, I was trying to do the math over here. It's going to be a long 100 days. But I think that's what the chief has to do. You have to be dedicated. You have to be here every day, and you have to spend that time. The simple answer, I want to get to know the community. I want to get to know that community, which is the city management. It is the officers, the employees. It is the stakeholders and the community folks. And I think to do that, it's got to be face-to-face. I need to be out there. I need to be part of that community. That word I said that my folks will get tired of hearing, ownership. Well, I can't expect them to have ownership until I have it. And I want to establish that ownership in my first 100 days. Past that, I plan specifically on employee forums. As I mentioned earlier, I need to hear from my folks what they see are the issues. They're the people that are on the ground. They know what's happening. I also need to have citizen forums where we have that opportunity in small groups to come into community watch groups or to geographic areas, and we have that dialogue, that back and forth. That will establish it. And I wanted to finish up with this one by saying what I will not do. I've had the opportunity, privilege, whatever you want to say it could be, in 22 years as a police officer to go through 6 different police chiefs. And I told the employee forum earlier today, I can tell you pretty much from that seat what I see chiefs do and what they do wrong. I don't think it's a wise move to come in and to upset the apple cart for no reason. And I say that because you all have a good police department. You have a really good police department. And I believe there are ways to make it better, but I don't think you should come in and change just for the sake of change. I think that's important. I think it's an important message from the chief. You do a lot of things very well. There are a few things you need to work on, some things immediately. But overall, it's a good organization, and we don't want to come in and just change for the fact of change. I told the employee group that, no, I didn't want to come in and paint all the cars a different color, because that's a big concern with police officers. Are they going to come in and change the color of the police cars? I'll finish up if I have time. Am I still good? Or you want to?
About 10 seconds. Yeah.
10 seconds, he said. 10 seconds to say why Winston. Some of this I'll pick back up when we get to do our wrap-up. But I will tell you that Winston is part of my home, too. I've spent my entire career in your sister city. My family and I have been here often. We consider this part of where we're from, and we've enjoyed it quite a bit. And when I get to do my wrap-up, I'll hit some of the details of exactly why.
The lady in the, yes ma'am, you in the green? If I don't call on you, I'm going to be in big trouble. And this will be our last question, and then after that, the candidates will each make a brief presentation to you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Let me say my name is Brenda Diggs, and I currently serve as the chairperson for the Winston-Salem Police Retirement Commission. So I have a deep respect, even without serving in that capacity, for what our officers do in this community. I also understand, and in listening to the various responses, that you, none of you, and I'm grateful that you are here and feel that Winston-Salem is the place that you would like to be the chief, but none of you can do it by yourselves. And so I want to go back and reiterate a couple of things and then ask you a question. The city is, just like many cities, as you've said, going through much change, and there will be continuous change for whoever takes this position. Change in funding, change in the whole dynamics in our community, certainly the police retirement fund, as I'm sure you have read up on, and I'm certain, Officer Roundtree, you're aware of, all of those changes. Those things can bring about a low morale. It can bring about really a communications gap within the police force. And so I hear you respond to what you would do and the funding and all of these things. I'm not quite certain what you can deliver that is within your own level of skill and expertise and task and ability, because so much of what I've heard, it depends on the money. It depends on another group. So I really would like for you to speak to that. And you know, you've heard the expression, the elevator speech, so let's keep it, you know, three minutes or less, you know, 3 seconds or less. How do you do something? And I'm going to be really even more specific. What's the 1 or 2 things that you can do within your own level of skill and knowledge and expertise to enhance our police department? And whether it's with the existing staff, the community, because I see you've got 3 key components. You've got to work with your staff, you've got to work with the community at large, and then of course, you know, you have to work with the city officials. So I want you to speak a little bit to that, and then I'm going out further. You know, if you get this job, 6 months, what are we going to be saying about you? Are we going to be saying that this is the worst hire that we've had? Are we going to be saying that this person has come in with a plan? You can't really have a strategic plan without getting your troops together and know what is it you want to be strategic about. So I'd like for you to really hone it in on you personally and take it away from the factors that you yourself don't control.
Okay, great. We'll start with Kirk Putney.
Can I get you to clarify your first question one more time? I got the second one.
My first one was, you know, when I talked about you and I asked for that elevator speech about
Yes,
kind of what can you yourself do? You know, because without the city's funding, if you got no more money, if you had to run with what you have, what would you do, given all of what you look to inherit?
Absolutely. Again, it goes back to what I said earlier about the vision. What I could do is more than just what I can deliver around increasing pay around officers. You're right, I have very limited influence over that. However, I do have the opportunity to speak with people actually around this dais who do have that authority. And that would be priority number 1, building those relationships as well. The city manager obviously is key in that. And as you know, he's made recommendations about how to increase pay over the years. The funding just has struggled to, just has not been there. And so we've struggled to accommodate. But what can I do around building that vision is I like to, again, I'm a passionate kind of person. I know it's shocking to you. You probably haven't picked that up yet. But I'm a passionate kind of person. And what I do is I bring that energy, I bring that passion, I bring that desire to serve something greater than myself, and I infect people with it. I know I might not be able to pay you more money, but there's nobody who's going to work harder to develop you and give you greater opportunities. I do wholeheartedly believe in career advancement and allowing for people, sworn and non-sworn, we haven't talked a lot about the non-sworn, to have those opportunities to improve themselves. It might not be rewarded financially, but personally. A lot of people join the police department not because of the pay, because we know we won't be millionaires, but because we want to serve a greater good, the public. What else can I do? I can come in and allow for opportunities, as I said before, not only here for Winston, but the state. We just launched a leadership development project here in North Carolina. Winston-Salem's not yet one of the agencies, but I can assure you, whoever up here is selected will be a part of that, bringing that total up to 6 agencies. What can I do? I can open some of those doors. And this state project is actually a nationally funded project because we want to spread it across the country. I want Winston to be the catalyst for that. 6 months from now, what will you say about me? You're probably going to call me the Energizer Bunny because I'm not going to stop. You got to understand this is a big risk for me and my family. And I hope my youngest boy is not watching, because what I can tell you is he's not big into moving. My oldest boy's kind of like me. You know, I want my next challenge. But I can only move one time. I'm not one who's seeking this position because I want to be chief. I'm seeking this position because I want to serve as chief right here. So 6 months ago, from now, you're going to say, he talked a good talk, he put it in writing, he marketed it, and then he took steps and took action. And then I want you to measure me by what I've accomplished in that 6 months, because we still have a number of years to go.
Okay. Wayne Scott?
The recap, what are the 2 things that I think I can bring to the table now? There's a phrase that I believe sums it up. The only true indicator of future performance is past success. And I will tell you, I've spent my entire career with the Greensboro Police Department. It is your sister city. Some of the exact same issues that face the city of Winston-Salem face the city of Greensboro. And we have overcome them. I can't guarantee it. It has to be funded. But I will tell you, we set about and we worked through it and made a better pay plan. We addressed compression in the city of Greensboro. We've had those opportunities, and I think it's a holistic approach to the city budget. And I think that you have to begin a conversation at the very first day of how that works, and you have to be good stewards of the money, and it's a conversation with city management. But I believe it's possible. It may not be quick, but it's possible. Internal changes, which are very important to the officers. One of the things I've heard, and I spoke to different officers, or concerns around the internal investigative process, the disciplinary plan, promotional process, transfer policies. All these things need to be looked at periodically. And I believe that when you get those and you get those right, it makes a difference for the way the officers come to work. They want to be here, that when they think they're treated fairly, when they believe they're valued. And I believe that's something that I can bring to the table. I've been able to be the one to lead that effort in the Greensboro Police Department before. The second thing, and it's a biggie, crime reduction. We talked a lot about everything except fighting crime. Well, that's the number 1 priority of the chief. I believe I can bring strategies here. Your numbers are trending down, but I believe we can trend them down further. There's a long ways to go when it comes to property crime when you look at the amount of people that are victimized in Winston-Salem. I told you earlier, we were able to drive our crime rate in Greensboro down 9.2% because of some very innovative strategies. I would like to bring those here. Greensboro alone last year, 1,300 less victims. That's huge. I don't make guarantees, and I can't make guarantees, but I will tell you that I've been at the helm of my organization, both as a deputy chief and working in the role of the chief from time to time, and made those decisions, and we saw positive outcomes. So those are the 2 things I think we can affect, and we can begin that rather quickly. 6 months from now, that's a tough one. That's a difficult one to answer. I can tell you what I hope you would see 6 months from now, which is you would say, here's a guy who's fulfilled what he said, because that's important to me. I've spent my whole career doing management and police work since I've been up in rank, and I believe that my word is important to me, and I think I will fulfill what I tell you, and those things that I say I can do, I intend to do, and I'm honest about the things that we can't do or that we may not be able to do. I think you're going to see a hard-working chief. I wasn't exaggerating when I said 16-hour days. That's what's required to hold one of these roles. It's important that we're there and that we're known and that we strike out amongst our communities and that we become a face of the police department. They need to be able, they being the citizens, need to know when they see the chief who he is and what his organization does. You need to have that. You need to have that comfort level. You need to have that comfort level at the press conferences, the interaction with the community. Frankly, that's something I think that Winston-Salem is lacking right now. You need that chief who has that presence from time to time. I believe that covered it. Thank you.
Barry Roundtree.
Okay, thank you. Very good question again. And to follow back up on what you mentioned, you're absolutely correct. It's very little that we can do without the funds that are allocated to us from the city. So what we have to do is continue to try to come up with creative ways to keep employees here and also build employees up. Most police officers don't become police officers to get rich. I remember when I told my parents I was going to be a police officer, they said, "Are you crazy? We didn't send you to Winston-Salem to be a police officer. We sent you to college so you can do something different." But I wanted to be a police officer because of my service to the community. What we can do to build employees up without funding is that we can provide them with the necessary training that they need so they can enhance their careers. We can provide them promotions in the police department. We can provide them diversity in assignments. And also we can do just things that will make them want to remain here, be happy, and serve the community, such as scheduling and make sure that their families are safe and make sure the community is safe. When you say what will we say about me in the next 6 months, probably you're going to say that's the best hire that we ever made. He's committed to the community. He say what he means and he does what he say. I think you also say that he's transparent, he's open, he's out in the community, he's working with the community, he's working with his officers, he knows the officers and he knows the community. So I think that's what you'll say in 6 months from now.
Since we're not quite at 5:30, we can ask one more question. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is John Hopkins. I recently read a very interesting article from the Cato Institute about the militarization of the police. And some of the facts that they pointed out there was a time when the use of the SWAT team was a measure of last resort. Nowadays, we hear reports that SWAT teams are being used to break up poker games in residential neighborhoods. Another issue I'd like for you all to address about is the use of the police department as a source of revenue generation. We just recently saw an article come out where some municipalities were shortening the time on the yellow light where there was a red light camera. And these things kind of bother me, and I want to see how you all would respond to a city council who might suggest that sort of thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think it's
mine.
Wayne, yeah.
Okay. Militarization of police. I will say, at least in where I come from, actually we've seen the reverse. We use our SWAT, our special weapons folks, actually much more sparingly. Partly because of probably what you're anticipating is that one, when you have heavily armed individuals in tactical gear going into a neighborhood, it creates alarm, and we don't want that. We want our officers to be safe, and I believe in that. And I believe if there's an issue that we need to use that kind of gear, then we will. One of the things that I spearheaded with GPD when I took over patrol about 18 months ago, we had I'll say a contagious issue of our officers wearing tactical vests on the outside of their uniforms. I don't think that's what policing is about. We police because the community allows us to. We don't do it by force. And that's something that I am not a fan of and that I think we should stray away from as much as possible. I think that's simply put. We have those resources. We need those resources from time to time. But overwhelmingly, 98, 99% of the time, the people we interact with cooperate because they respect the police. And we need to treat them fairly like that. One of the things that Greensboro is working on right now is by the end of November or so, we're going to have a body camera on every person that's in patrol in the GPD. And I will tell you that those interactions are important to us. And that's why I say that we have that program. And having the tactical gear and those kind of things are for tactical issues. They're not there to intimidate people, and I wouldn't allow that as chief. Your second question about as a source of revenue, I'm extremely opposed to that. I believe that when we look at an officer, and very often our discretion is called into question, whether an officer stops and writes someone a ticket. Most people will feel that, why did I get one and they didn't arrest the other 3 people that were speeding down the road? And I want to ask for a show of hands, but I know everybody from time to time has asked that question. And that relates back to officer discretion as to which car they stop and how they make those decisions. We can only truly have that discretion and make it a fair, just way that we enforce when we are not profit generated. At the moment when we start attaching profit making to police work, we lose the integrity, we lose the trust of the community, and I would be strongly opposed to that. And quite frankly, I don't know of any way that we would do it from the criminal side of policing. It just wouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen in the state.
Okay. Barry Roundtree.
Okay, thank you. A very good question again. The militarization of police, I've commanded the police department's Field Services Bureau, which encompasses the Special Operations Division, which houses our SWAT unit. We do not use our SWAT unit to break up poker games. As you mentioned, we do have to have our officers equipped. You know, make no bones about it. We do have to keep the officers safe. We do have to have the officers equipped when situations arises where we need to go in for a hostage situation or whatever the case may be. So there is a time, there is a place, but we do not use our SWAT teams to break up poker games. To answer your question about shortening the red light cameras, I think was your exact question as a revenue generator. I do not agree with that, where you pretty much tricking the citizens by shortening the red lights so you can generate money for the cities. There are different ways where the police department can generate funds. We do participate in the federal forfeiture fund programs where we can confiscate money from drug dealers, and that's from the federal government, but it's not for your average citizens out here who's driving along in a car. And I did see that article also. So if I'm selected as chief, that would not be something that I would be interested in doing. Presently, right now, we don't have any red light cameras here in the city anyway.
Okay. Kerr Putney.
Thank you. Second question first, using the police department as a revenue source. Obviously, my answer is I do not support that at all. I don't make policy, though I respect that, and those who do, but I would be quite opposed to anything like that. That smells of entrapment, and at the essence erodes public trust, I believe. Militarization of the police. My experience has been a SWAT commander as a captain over SWAT, so I'm very sensitive to that balance. And also as a deputy chief of support services, I had special operations, which encompasses SWAT and then community services. So I have a strong background in that area. So I know when it is appropriate to use SWAT. But the other thing, though, is the bigger issue is the image that you're portraying. I know that you will have a significant image issue over utilizing some of that equipment because it is intimidating. It is there for the safety of the officers, but as a police executive, we have to be mindful that there's a delicate balance. I'm absolutely supportive of equipping officers to do the job safely, but also I'm going to have to balance that, meaning if it's a card game going on, I think we can gain access without having to use a bear, as they're called, which is kind of intimidating. And that is the expectation. So I respect the question. I appreciate that. But, and I do share some of those concerns that sometimes I think out of convenience, we use a sledgehammer when a hammer would do. So that would be something I would definitely guard against, sir.
Okay, it's now time for our wrap-up. Each of the candidates is prepared to make a presentation of less than 5 minutes about who they are and why they feel that they should be the chief of Winston-Salem. The first respondent will be Barry Roundtree.
Okay. Thank you again for having me here. Number one, it's an honor and it's a pleasure for me to be here for being selected as a finalist for the police chief's position. And I do want to thank you for coming out today to participate in this very important process for selecting our next police chief. And I do say our police chief because this is my city. This is my police department. And if I'm not selected, I plan on being here, finishing what I started 25 years ago. So I'm not going anywhere. I do feel that I have the necessary skills, education, and knowledge to serve as the next police chief here in Winston-Salem. I've been dedicated to this city, dedicated to this community, and I've served with distinction. I've had the opportunity to leave and go different places, apply for other jobs, police chief jobs. So I'm not applying for this job just because I want to be a chief. I'm applying for this job because this is my police department. I have a connection to this community. I have a connection to this police department. I live here. I go to church here. My pastor's actually here. My family's here. My family's here. Y'all stand up. So this is my community. My son goes to school here, so I do have a deep connection for this community. I feel that I know the officers in this department well. I feel that I know the members of the city council well, and I can work with them. And I feel that I can work well with the executive staff of the community. So I don't need to start off from scratch to get the ball rolling if you hire me as chief of police. I can start off today and keep the ship moving, make the necessary adjustments that we need to make in the police department to keep things running smooth and to keep you safe as a community here in Winston-Salem. Again, I do care about the employees here in Winston-Salem. I care about the community. I've built a lot of relationships working with a lot of you sitting in this room. And if I'm selected, those relationships and those partnerships will continue. So again, thank you for coming out. Thank you for being here. Those that came to support me and those that came just to ask your questions, thank you for coming.
Okay. Kurt Putney.
Thank you. First and foremost, I'd like to tell you you're in very good shape. I think Chief Scott and Chief Roundtree are excellent candidates. I would also like to thank you for coming out. I know it's a sacrifice. I appreciate you taking that initiative to do so. That is exactly what it takes to make a vibrant and safe community. I come with a track record of success. I am a passionate person and believe in what I'm charged with doing. First and foremost, I'm a crime fighter. I'm a cop. That's what I do. That's why I'm here. Over the last 5 years, as a deputy chief in Charlotte, I've been able to contribute to the reduction of crime, Part 1 offenses, by about 32%. So we're pretty proud of the work that we've accomplished there. But I'm not here to talk to you about Charlotte. I'm here to talk to you about Winston-Salem. I started off in Winston-Salem a long time ago in college. I went to Wake Forest and didn't get to experience the city as much as I did through the assessment that we've gone through over the last month or so. And really respect the city. Again, it was assessment. You're not just assessing me, trust me. I was doing my own analyzing and assessments as well. And by the way, Winston-Salem has passed with flying colors. This is a city with a very strong, very good police department. You've heard us say quite a bit, and I know we said it a lot this morning, moving from good to great. I think I'd like to be a part of that. I know I'd like to be a part of moving the organization forward. We talk about what we've done. Employee development is what I do best. Community engagement, developing public trust, telling you what I'm going to do and then doing it, and then having you critique the way in which I've done it. That's just how I believe a chief should operate. We're going to fight crime and we're going to solve community problems. We're not going to get too far in one area. I'm not going to sacrifice the problems that are most important in your neighborhoods just for the sake of driving down crime, the numbers. It's bigger than the numbers. We're going to also, the big thing for me is celebrating the positives. We talked about a lot of negative things, and in my line of work, I'm always talking about crime and crime victims, and I also want to talk about things around crime prevention. I also want to talk about successful conclusions of cases. I also want to talk about closure. We have established a homicide support group where I come from, and it is humbling to see community members who've also experienced that tragic event rally around the newest victim in that community. Powerful stuff. That's the stuff that gets juices flowing. That's why I sit in front of you today. I like to replicate some of those opportunities here. I'd like to move my family here and be a part of the Winston-Salem fabric. I'm committed, I'm dedicated, I'm inspired by what I see. I appreciate your attendance today. Thank you very much. And again, I'll stop as I started. Winston-Salem is going to be in good shape. You have a lot to be proud of, and I appreciate your sacrifice. Thank you for showing up tonight.
Okay, Wayne Scott.
Okay. I too will basically start the same way my colleagues have. This is an extremely important decision for the city, for the communities here, and it's outstanding to see this many people come out to a middle afternoon meeting to be invested in the process, and that's wonderful to see. All the finalists you have before you, I think, are prepared for this position. The question is, which one do you want to be your next chief? And that kind of curtails right into the question I didn't get to finish earlier, why me, why Winston? I've spent my entire law enforcement career. I actually started with the Greensboro Police Department when I was 20 years old. I was sworn when I was 21. I applied for one police department. I applied for GPD. I've had a great career there. I still have a great job there. They're great people, and I'm very proud of that city. So why am I here? Because I applied for one additional police department just a couple of months ago. I applied for the Winston-Salem Police Department chief spot. I'm not chief shopping. I've never applied anywhere else. I applied because I believe that I am the right person for the job here. I look at our cities. I've mentioned a couple of times that Greensboro is a sister city to Winston-Salem. And I also mentioned that one of my mottos, the only true indicator of future performance is past success. Well, I've been blessed and had past success at some of the very same issues that Winston-Salem is facing and will face in the near future. I believe that the next chief is going to be faced with things like controlling the crime rate. The trending is correct. Winston-Salem is down. There's still room to grow. Property crimes are at a point that they need to be lower. Building trust in the community. We've talked about that a lot. And that is something that almost every police chief of any size organization has to work at. We've had success in Greensboro, and I think some of the strategies we've employed there, I can bring here. I believe that Winston-Salem has to have their own strategies as well, and I believe that I know how to build those. We mentioned this earlier as well, strengthen crime prevention, and I forget who the gentleman was that mentioned that. So often we talk about how we respond to crime. I don't want you to forget how important it is that we prevent crime from the get-go. We prevent someone from being victimized. It's great that we can go solve a crime, but I want to implement strategies to create that problem-solving organization where we talk about officers being invested and having that ownership in their communities, and we prevent the crime from the get-go. What have we done? What have I done in the past? I mentioned the crime reduction that we experienced over at GPD. We implemented an inside-outside strategic plan. A little different strategic plan. We all talked about it. My vision for a strategic plan is where do we want to be and how do we get there? It's just that simple. Often when you see strategic plans or you look on websites and you see old strategic plans, it's all about percentages and we want to see this reduction or that reduction. I think it's more than that. I think it's important that it's broad and that we have buy-in by our community, our partners, and by the organization itself. Implement minority recruitment issues need to be worked on. Retention within the organization. Had limited success on both of those in the Greensboro Police Department. Our last 4 academies, we've been able to push our minority recruitment up to over 30% for the last 4 academies, something we're very proud of. That's a concerted effort, and it's one that you don't give up on. You don't achieve that and then you walk away from it. You continuously work at it because it is, it's a goal that we need to meet, but that we have to continuously push toward. Many of the inside concerns of the organization, I talked about these earlier, a pay plan. And I get the fact that budgets are bad. That doesn't excuse us from looking at what can we do and what do we need to do in the future. At GPD, we've done that. It took almost 5 years, but we've actually created a pay plan for public safety, which has addressed some of the issues that the officers had. looking at the internal investigative process, the discipline plans, promotional process, to make sure it's fair. I've heard feedback from some Winston-Salem officers that there's concern around that. I believe that's something that I can lead. I've led in the past and been successful at it. Finally, I will tell you that I've done all these things through the GPD, and at the same time, we've been surveying you all, the public. 24 months ago, we had a 70% approval rating. As of April of this year, we're up to 80% in Greensboro, and we're very proud of that. We were able to accomplish change and meet the needs of our community all at once, and that's a formula that's hard to beat. And I believe that under the right leadership, Winston-Salem has those same opportunities to reach those same goals. And I'll close with this, and I mentioned this to the employee forum this morning. If you surveyed all my captains that work for me directly and asked them what is the motto out there that I hate the most, and you would hear this: if it's not broke, don't fix it. Whenever I hear that, I despise it, because I will tell my folks what I expect instead. If it's not broke, let's make it better. And I think that applies tenfold to this organization. The Winston-Salem Police Department is not broke. It is a good police department. But I want to be the person to make it better, and I want you to give me an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. I started off this session by telling you what an outstanding group of candidates this is, and I think you've gotten a sense of that. I hope you all will join me in giving them a round of applause. Several of you all had questions and did not get to ask them. I'm going to ask the candidates to circle around to the front of the dais here and be available for any individual conversations. And again, thank you all so much for your commitment and being here tonight.